Happy Monday to everyone. It is the start of my morning. So 6:40 a.m. Monday. That means only one thing. I need to go back to bed. No, seriously. Today is officially the start of the 2018 Performing Arts Workshop Summer Camp season. And so if you've seen some of my other videos, and first off, I'd like to extend my very warm welcome to my old stalkers and my new stalkers here on Facebook Live, as I'm just boarded onto the 405 freeway en route to my drop-offs for this morning. This is a little bit of a different environment here. If you're used to seeing some of my other videos in the last several months, this car here is my for the company Warzone vehicle 1998 Toyota 4Runner, which pretty much has survived everything, including half of the apocalypse, and continues to just keep chugging along 20 years later. It has been my beast for as long as I have been with Performing Arts Workshops, and it pretty much is where I'm going to be finding myself inside of for the next 10 weeks or so, going to different campsites and taking pictures and all that fun stuff. So if you're watching these for the first time, I usually aim to do these on Monday mornings, because usually the rest of the week it's pretty mundane with me, just kind of doing the same thing. But there's something special about the first deliveries of the week, because not only are they hella early, but they usually involve me having to go to more sites than normal and sitting on the freeway a lot and griping about life and all sorts of things. I usually don't do a lot of griping, but more like storytelling. And as traditionally as the weeks go by, sometimes I'll get some occasional questions in the comments that I end up answering while I'm en route to somewhere else. So as usual, if you have any questions or anything like that, I usually end up talking about my motorcycle somehow, or some sort of tech information about what to do when you're looking for a motorcycle. Well, yeah, I know it's not just motorcycles, but it's also other things. Feel free to stick them in the comments and I will answer them later. So this morning I'm heading to 3 sites, but today I'm actually adding a 4th with an early stop in Brentwood this morning, and eventually my normal other 3 sites on Mondays: Studio City, Pasadena, and Chatsworth Northridge. So it's going to be a bit of driving in the valley today. It's usually the toughest day of the week in regards to just my own, conscious fortitude. I guess that's probably the best way to put it. But, some of the purposes of me doing these kind of things is not only to keep me awake because I haven't had my coffee yet, but also just kind of, tag in all the weird stuff that has been going on in the last, since we last talked. So, if you watched the last episode of this, I was kind of in a weird situation. I was actually a bit riled up, upset, that kind of thing. So, I was in the middle of some Uber driving, and I had a soda thrown at me by a teenager who was supposed to, be on this, take a ride with me, and ended up turning into this whole incident where I had to report it to Uber and all this stuff, and the person was charged a cleaning fee, the person who arranged the ride. And, the biggest thing that was hurt more was my own, ego and sense of self rather than the actual car. So, I think one of the biggest things that I had to do for myself, at least, was to pick it up and, just do the same thing on Sunday. And, the following day was a good day. Ended up, killing it, and it was really cool. And then I had to spend most of the following week just doing some more driving and just kind of getting through things. So with that being said, with the start of this 10-week session, and I will go into what happened the last couple days, because actually, you know what? Let me just digress, because I still have quite a bit of time before I get to Brentwood here. But the last couple days of driving have been a little crazy, and I will say, if there was any way for me to, get that kind of final hurrah before I was, I'm taking a break, pretty much in a very extended break from, hardcore full-time Ubering for the next 10 weeks or so because of summer camp, this definitely had to be the icing on the cake when it came to extreme rides and just mileage under my seat in my own car. So happened on Saturday was, I had plans for the evening, which I still made, and it was all right. It was actually a good time. But what had happened was I'm like, okay, well, I got nothing to do in the morning, and things were kind of done at the house. So I said, okay, I'm going to go drive for a few hours. So I log on, and it's pretty slow. Nothing much to do. Nobody's really asking for rides. So I decide first thing I'll do is I'm going to head over to LAX. And for those who don't drive, there is a waiting lot that we sit in when, and we're all GPS tracked and all that fun stuff. And I'm there, sitting there, waiting for a ride to happen. I'm like, okay, sure, Okay. About 15 minutes goes by, and then I finally get a ride request. And I said, okay, ride request, cool. And I go over, and I pick this person up. And mind you, too, and this is just some of the things that, just to clear up, is that as an Uber driver, you don't know where the person is going until you accept the ride. So this is where it gets fun. I accept this passenger, and she needs to go to San Diego. Not kidding. So I'm picking up this person from LAX, needs to go straight to San Diego. I had just filled up gas. I had a full tank. And I'm thinking in my head mentally, because I can't really, I got a poker face to the customer, and I'm going, are you freaking kidding me? My concern wasn't the mileage, it was the amount of traffic getting down there, because normally it's about 120 miles away, and I'll even, I'll disclose how much this passenger actually paid Uber. It was just kind of funny, because it was, fortunately for her, but unfortunately for me, it wasn't during a surge promotion, so I wasn't getting any bonuses out of this one. But 120 miles distance south, and nearly 2 hours and 50 minutes of driving. And so that pretty much ate up most of my day, and it was the only ride that I took that day. So I'm there for 3 hours. I mean, I don't even know how this... And this particular customer was also an international student, so I guess this person didn't actually have, a perspective as to how far I was actually driving. Now, the next question that came to mind was, okay, if you flew in to LAX and you have to go all the way to San Diego, wouldn't it have made any more sense just to fly into San Diego? And I asked the customer that exact question, and in her broken English, she couldn't explain that to me. So I'm just like, okay, grin and bear it and get paid. So I ended up driving about 3 hours. I had some snacks in my car. I always carry water with me, which is good. And just drove. And an hour of the traffic was probably right past San Clemente, and I'm just sitting there like a complete schmuck. And fortunately, there was really no complaints about the music I was playing, because I have to say it started to evolve with, depending on my mood. It started with some really nice country, and then kind of graduated into like old 80s pop, and then went into just something random out of my mix. And after I dropped the customer off, and I unfortunately did not take any other additional rides going back up from San Diego, because I did have something to do that evening, so I couldn't really waste any time coming back up. Yeah, it evolved to Rammstein. That's really where it was. Super loud with the windows down and some screaming. And that's how I ended up getting back up to getting back up here to the South Bay. That was Saturday. Now I'm thinking, okay, that just pulled that big stunt. And I will say that at 120 miles south, that completely shatters the personal record of distance single one way from point A to point B anywhere. The previous record was set actually 2 weeks prior to that, or actually a week prior to that, when I had to take a customer from LAX back to Laguna Niguel. So, and Laguna Niguel from LAX is only 73 miles. So you're kind of like, okay, This, it could get worse, right? Or it could get better. Sunday, so I'm talking yesterday. Okay, get in my car, fill up some gas, get everything ready to go. I started driving people around. And this one started pretty local. Started in Lawndale, kind of worked my way around Redondo Beach, Manhattan Beach, kind of doing circles. Ended up in Rolling Hills at one point and then back into Lawndale. And then things just started to kind of just continue to progress more, I would say, slightly southbound. So ended up taking a ride that sent me down to Carson, which I'm going to make a side note about Carson. Now, for the people who know me, I spent 20 years in Carson, and I lived in Carson, on Carson Street, and, nothing big amiss, right? So I ended up picking someone up off of basically Avalon and 223rd. So if you're aware of that area, that's the area around Carson Street School and kind of bordering like Stephen White and those kind of areas. So I ended up picking this gentleman up, and a very nice guy. So, and it's a quick one. He's asking me, hey, I just need to run to the liquor store. And, could you wouldn't mind, I'd tip you extra, but you wouldn't mind if I, if you sat in the car and then took me back to the house. I said, well, sure. I mean, it's not the first time I've had to do that, and it was broad daylight, so it's not like I was really, thinking much. So it's taking me over to that side of Carson. Mind you, that's the side of Carson that I usually don't hang out around because that's not where my childhood home was. And, we're talking, and he was just telling me about, how many people that he knew or had heard about getting murdered within the last month on his side of the street. And I'm thinking, with the way that Carson Street has kind of changed and it's been beautified and everything like that, it seems like the area around Carson High School, Veterans Park. So let's see, if you're going north, that's like the southeast corner or something like that of Carson. Apparently nothing's really changed. There's still a lot of gang activity and people are still getting killed. So, the funniest advice that I got being in Carson was, don't move back. Don't even think of moving back. Not that that's crossed my mind, because personally I really don't see myself living in Carson again. But apparently people are still getting murdered in Carson, so it might be in my best interest if I want to stay alive to not move back. That really sucks. I was thinking the place was getting better, to be honest with you. That actually kind of makes it mad. Hey, one of my old stalkers is online. So anyway, just to give you my location, I just passed the La Cienega exit on the 405. I'm just kind of crawling, and I still have a ways to get to Brentwood, so I've got a lot of talking going on here. But yeah, so Carson's still in the middle of the ghetto, or at least borderline in it, and it's very unfortunate. And but it gets even better. So after I drop this person off, and I start taking a few more people around, I end up somehow back in Lawndale on another ride, picking up from the Wilmington border. And after that, I end up doing a couple drop-offs in Hawthorne, and it slowly starts to evolve to where I get one alert. It's a 45-plus minute ride, because what will happen is, with the exception of LAX, I will get alerted in advance if a ride is going to last longer than 45 minutes in duration. So I see one of these, and I'm going, okay, 45-minute duration. I'm looking at it about 12:30 in the afternoon. Okay, I got some time to do this one. So it was about a 6-mile drive from 120th and the 105. So around Hawthorne Airport. And so I jump on the 105, get over to the Manchester exit on the 110 at Broadway. And there's a Bank of America right there. And so that's where I was going to meet this customer. Now, mind you, this area is even far worse than what Carson is. I mean, I'm right in the smack dab of South Central. So I'm over there, and this person goes in the car. I'm like, okay, I get a male name on there. It's a female. So the ride was ranged fine. So I accept the ride. And it turns out that from my point in San Bernardino, yeah, I had to go to San Bernardino. Not even kidding. From South Central LA, my ride, San Bernardino, that's a 74-mile drive. And it wasn't even just any part of San Bernardino. It was the absolute bowels of San Bernardino on the I-15 side. This wasn't even like, are you kidding me? So here I am shooting across the 210, all that stuff. And fortunately, because it was a Sunday, traffic was pretty non-existent. It was almost real time. I was like mile per minute. And that was fine. I was okay with that. The only problem that really sucked about it, because it did take me about an hour and 25 minutes to get there, was that, I had to go do that without a bathroom break. That was probably the worst part. And so, dropping off this customer who was pretty much in the back the entire time, just kind of sleeping and doing whatever. And fortunately, had no issue with my music choices. I did not go Rammstein on this person, but there was a point where I did switch over to Sirius XM Octane, because I was just kind of like starting to knock out myself out of the boredom. And so, driving into the desert, 74 miles, and I dropped this person off. And so, once that happened, I'm thinking, okay, I'm in the middle of nowhere. Let me see where I am in location, in perspective to everything else. And pull out my phone, and I realize that I'm only 30 miles away from the Cracker Barrel in Victorville. Now, if you were seeing my post from yesterday, yes, I did have a great lunch in Victorville. And the other thing, too, is with it being Father's Day, I'm thinking, okay, it's got to be, like, freaking packed there. Everyone's got to be eating at Cracker Barrel and things like that, And so I'm thinking it's going to be really busy as hell, but it's going to be worth it, right? So I'm only 30 miles away from this Cracker Barrel. But here's the caveat. As you know, to get to Victorville and Hesperia, you have to go over the Cajon Pass. And so this is the section of I-15 where there's nothing else. So, all right, fine. So I start driving on the 215, which becomes the 15. And I'm going over the pass. I'm doing the thing. I finally get there. It's probably about 1:30 in the afternoon, because I'm kind of taking my time. And I park, and it's like, wow, it's a Cracker Barrel. It looks exactly like every other Cracker Barrel that I've seen. Driving across the country all these years, really, really cool. I see the person in the front, and I'm like, hey, so what's the wait for party of one? And she's like, oh yeah, just go to the front there. We have a few tables out, reserved just for people like party of one, party of two. Because I'm looking out there, and there's like party of 16, something ridiculous like that. Studio City and the Hizzy. Yes, Christy, I'll be there soon. If you need Starbucks, just put it in the comments. I'll get you Starbucks, whatever. So, back to this. So I'm there and I go enjoy myself. Have my very first Cracker Barrel of 2018 and the first one I've had since 2014. It's been a long while. I mean, considering that the distance it's almost 100 miles away from home to eat at a Cracker Barrel, I'm really hoping that there's one that comes that they build that's going to be a little bit closer, because I mean, not that I really want to go there all the time, but I had to be thrown out of my way to be able to enjoy this, and that's okay. It was fun and it was tasty, and I really, really wish I wasn't by myself, but it's when you do Uber driving, it can be a bit lonely at times. And when you get thrown in the middle of nowhere, which is not the first time that has happened to me, you make the best of what you got. And as I had mentioned before, when life gives you San Bernardino, you throw Victorville at it, and that's what you do. So yes, Cracker Barrel was very tasty. I did miss that, and it tasted exactly the same as I remembered it, including the tea, which was very, very nice. Yes, and this particular Cracker Barrel, if you are familiar with the normal dining room setting, it does have the fireplace. It does have all of the decor. It's more specific to like California though, so like more like the farm implements and all those extra little vintage things. They're more relatable to like California, San Bernardino, very cool stuff. The gift shop's exactly the same. It's the same size as any other Cracker Barrel. It's pretty much a standard Cracker Barrel, but the only difference is it's in California and it's the only one right now. The next closest Cracker Barrels from Victorville. Yes, I know. I'm glad too. I mean, seriously, when they opened up in February of this year, I lost my collective shit. I was like Cracker Barrel for the win. So that was really cool. But aside from the Cracker Barrel in Victorville, the next closest ones are going to be Las Vegas. There's one at the Silverton right before you enter the Strip, and the next two are going to be Yuma, Arizona, and Flagstaff. So those are going to be the next three closest Cracker Barrels. After that, the only other one I know of in Nevada, actually no, it's like St. George, Utah, or something like that. So those are like the next closest Cracker Barrels. Which is kind of funny because then I'm like inside of a Ralph's somewhere in Manhattan Beach, and I'm seeing these gift cards. They have these gift card mall things that they have, near the frozen food section, and they have gift cards for Cracker Barrel, and I'm going. For the longest time, I'm looking at that going, okay, I guess maybe because if you're planning on going out of state, you can go enjoy your Cracker Barrel. But I'm going, are you kidding me? I was like, what are you? It's like, this is some like non-regional specific stuff. But then again, when, Super K was still around with the Kmarts, they were selling ice scrapers at the California ones because we needed them, right? So there's just something to be said about inventory and, non-region specific generics. It's kind of funny. Considering that I was an inventory manager at one point, it's kind of like, there's a very, very, very thick line between stocking things and having relevancy to what you're trying to sell. But, it's not like I have control over that. Anyway, so that was San Bernardino. And so I decided, okay, fine. After I was finished with that and I had to get over the Cajon Pass to go back toward Los Angeles because, I'm all the way up there. I set my Uber to basically say, okay, only give me rides that are finding their way back south toward LAX. And so on my way back, and somehow I end up all the way back in Linwood, which was great, but I ended up accepting 2 rides, one of them taking me back to Azusa, which put me on the 10 freeway. And then I was slowly able to go back down to Pico Rivera and then back down to Linwood and then back toward Hawthorne, which then that ride sent me back down to Torrance. And here I am. I'm going, okay, all done. After that Torrance ride, I realized I was on Torrance Boulevard when I dropped the person off. I'm like, I'm going straight to the beach. So I decided, you know what, I need to watch a sunset because I had seen the desert, I had seen the sea, I had seen all of Southern California in 2 days. I needed my water back. So when all that was said and done, finished my evening walking the beach at Redondo. So I could I could just put a cap on everything and say, I'm good for the next few weeks. Now, mind you, am I completely cold turkey off Uber? The answer is no. But then this extends to an experiment. And by the way, just for location purposes, I am barely passing California 90 Marina Del Rey. This is about how slow traffic is. Yeah, I know I can wave to people from here at this point. But I decided during this 10-week stint, with the exception of small gigs that I've picked up months in advance, I'm going to do everything in my power to try to see what it feels like to only have one job. It sounds weird, and it's something that I haven't been able to do in years because since I've come back to California, every day's been a hustle. If I'm not working one thing, I'm usually doing something after hours. Just trying to, continue to make ends meet and all that fun jazz that goes with life and not being able to move up a tax bracket. And I'm going to give it a shot. See what it's like to actually finish one job and do nothing else that it makes an income, but rather something for myself instead. This is a very hard thing for me to do, but it's a very necessary thing. There was one thing that I learned from this weekend, and for all of the work that I've done and for all that I've had to do to get ahead so that I could pull this experiment off, self-preservation is actually a thing. And as much as I want to be fair to myself, it's just been hard enough to try to find the ways that I can be. So with that being said, there will be some jobs that I will decline. There will be some side work during the weekend that I will say no to. There will be things that I would rather be doing. And if I'm going to be working from Monday to Friday on most weeks, I should not have to end up in a situation where I feel like I'm crawling on my hands and knees just to get to Friday. It's completely unfair. It's still a very difficult prospect to think about. But I know that in the long run, it'll definitely be better for my personal health. When you're running on overdrive the entire time, and then you start questioning, why, I'm not able to enjoy things like I used to. That's when I've been working too much. Yeah. Definitely need to find ways to reconnect with just the rest of what I haven't been able to do for a long time. So that's my experiment for the next 10 weeks. The only other things that I have on my plate, this class that I barely care about, Cal State Long Beach, that the reason why I barely care about it is because it's a prerequisite that I'm required to take, which is funny because this prerequisite that I'm required to take, that's an undergrad level class, is all full of master's students. Because everyone has to take it, it's kind of a waste of time. I mean, it's a waste of time for me just because many of the concepts are things that I've seen in high school and in college, because yes, I've had to do research myself, but they have to teach it. I'm not really sure what kind of use this is going to have in the future unless I decide to do a dissertation for an EDD or a PhD, which, if you've talked to me earlier, I'm already at a point where I'm starting to question the relevancy of my master's degree, so maybe moving forward may not be my best option at this moment in time. But in regards to kind of choosing careers and things like that, that's something also that's going to be put on hold for 10 weeks. I'm going to put I'm going to do the literal meaning of you had one job. Because I only have one life. Somehow I've been able to pull it off beautifully. I don't even know how I do it sometimes. I say that honestly because it's I'm running off from one thing to another, and then when everything's all said and done, it's kind of how is this even possible? But it just allows me to survive another day in LA. That's kind of where we are. So, with that being said, I really haven't moved much. I'm just passing Fox Hills Mall right now. I'm at a crawl, 7:08 in the morning. And as expected, and that's why I have to leave the office hella early to get to the valley, because this is all just normal. This is just all normal traffic to get from point A to point B. But yeah, let's see how it goes. I think that this is a positive change. It's definitely daunting. I mean, I know that maybe someday, if I actually figure out, or if I get picked up by, a place that wants to pay me a decent living wage so I don't have to keep scrambling, that this whole idea of a 9 to 5, or at least the whole day of a normal day, and then after that said normal day you don't have to work anymore, might become a reality for longer than just 10 weeks. But I just want to feel it. I just want to see what it feels like. No. But yeah. So yeah, that's me. My career questioning self while I'm sitting on the freeway. That's all I got right now. And yeah. So on other news, Eleanor updates. If anyone's up for an Eleanor update, yeah, she's back at the shop again. I know it's getting old, but new thing came up. Fuel pump finally failed on her. So what had happened was everything was fixed, valve adjustment, the issues with the master cylinder of the clutch leaking, so that was fixed, and the master cylinder for the clutch was rebuilt. My entire clutch, all my clutch plates were all replaced. I was still having issues with not being unable to maintain an idle, and it turns out that my fuel pump was delivering less than a third of the required PSI needed to, fuel to pump the fuel into the injectors. So technically, according to my mechanic, Robert, it's supposed to be delivering anywhere between 110 to 125 PSI worth of pressure, and it was only delivering anywhere between 30 and 40 and failing fast. So that's when you know, yeah, that pump had to go. 11 years, 200,000 miles, and I finally had to replace the fuel pump, which fortunately is only a $50 part. So I'm just waiting for that to come in so that can be snapped in, and then figure out. I'm hoping that's it for the bike, because it would be really nice to ride another 40, 50,000 miles without having to deal with that. You know, doing other things like wear and tear, like tires, other things I'd rather be replacing, that kind of thing. So that's the Eleanor update. And if you're still watching this, yes, there's hockey on Friday. Something to look forward to, right? But yes, there is hockey on Friday. If you come down to Toyota Sports Center, it's at 9 p.m. on the Olympic ice. And we play again. Currently, we're 1-1 in the on the season. I am posting currently a 1-1 record with 1 shutout, which is a nice thing. Aside from that, got some other stories going on, but perhaps when the time is right, I can talk about them. But aside from that, be safe out there. Do what you have to do to get it done, but take time for yourself. I'm taking my own advice, I swear. Working on it. And it's bad when I'm not even at Washington Venice, and I've probably talked for at least 30 minutes. But here we are. So yeah, keeping it positive, doing the thing. This is going to be a crazy experiment. I think that I'm going to pull it off. There's a lot of good things going ahead here, and yeah, let's just make it happen, right? So, but yes. So back to summer camp. If you're there are always slots available. If you are in the Los Angeles area and looking for some stuff to do, or for your kids from ages 5 to 14, we have camps of every shape and size for you to enjoy in multiple locations. If you're seeing this and you're thinking, my kid might need summer camp because I might need to, not have them sitting in the house doing absolutely nothing, twiddling their thumbs and watching HBO, which unfortunately was me growing up. Yes, let me know, and I will get you connected with the right people. I'll tell you, these damn traffic, I swear. But yes, we have 9 locations available. Go for it. Yeah, that's what I got. So until next time, might be later this week or next Monday, I will be online. Of course, you can always poke me whenever, because I'm here. But I will check you all later. Be good. Stay out of Carson. That was pretty sobering. Stay out of Carson, and don't end up in any city that begins with San unless they pay you. Seriously, all right, later.